Welcome to Comic Books and Dinosaurs Part 2. In Part 1, we looked at Gold Key's comic book Turok, Son of Stone, which effectively used the Lost World concept to get dinosaurs and humans together. It had a remote valley where dinosaurs still existed. The next series we're going to look at used a very similar concept. In the War That Time Forgot, which appeared in DC Comics, usually in Star-Spangled War stories during the 1960s, used the same Lost World concept. In this case, the Lost World was a remote island in the Pacific. Every issue, GIs or Navy personnel or whomever would end up on this island where they would encounter dinosaurs as well as Japanese. It was a wonderfully geeky concept. World War II books were popular at the time. Dinosaurs were always popular amongst kids who were still the primary readers of comic books at the time. So let's just toss them together and mix them up and see what comes out. So we came up with the War That Time Forgot, set usually on that island. Now there were a few issues that were set in the Arctic, where commandos would be tracking down like secret Nazi missile bases located there, and they'd end up inadvertently thawing out some frozen dinosaurs and having to deal with them as well. But the majority of the series was set in the Pacific. The first story was in Star-Spangled War Stories number 90, which was cover dated April-May 1960. The concept appeared in every other issue for a few months and then became a regular feature beginning in Star-Spangled War Stories number 94. What we're looking at here is issue number 95, which was the February-March 1961 issue. It was written by Robert Kanigher, who was DC's main war book writer, and he's the one who came up with this concept. The artist here is Ross Andru, who was more often than not the regular artist during the series. A few other artists did contribute. Joe Kubert did some issues. Neil Adams did one issue, I believe. But more often than not, it was Ross Andru. And he had good, solid artwork. He portrayed equipment and vehicles realistically. He drew the dinosaurs very well, even though they were larger and sometimes more vicious than they would have been in real life. He did a great job of portraying them for us. He'd occasionally throw in a make-believe monster. We'd get a giant frog or a giant scorpion or a giant spider as well, which are typical inhabitants of Lost Worlds. They really wouldn't be fun Lost Worlds without that sort of thing as well. But getting into this issue, the first thing we get is the sort of splash page that DC commonly did in its books at that time, just to give you a hint at what was going to happen. And if this splash page doesn't get you interested, then by golly, nothing will. That's a really tense moment there. The guys on the island being slowly eaten up by this giant seagoing Leviathan thing. Then the first issue of the story, we find out that several paratroopers are out on a joyride. I love that it's PT-109. We never actually get to see their friend, the commander of the PT boat, who's driving them around. But Kennedy was president at the time, or this was early 1961. Yes, he was president at the time, or he was about to be sworn in. And so using PT-109 was just a nifty little joke there. But what happens in terms of the story is they find a guy drifting at sea who's just completely out of this. This guy is total shell shock, post-traumatic stress syndrome here, and is just totally out of it. He turns out to be a friend of the paratroopers. In fact, he's part of a unit that went missing not long ago. But whatever happened to him, he's no longer capable of telling them. So the Allied commanders come up with a actually rather less than brilliant plan, which is load another platoon of paratroopers onto another plane and have it fly the same route and find out what the heck happened to the first guys. So they are the guinea pig patrol. And so they take off, and before long, by golly, they do find out what happens. The plane is attacked by a giant pterodactyl. Now, right here, we should say that as large as dinosaurs were in real life, in the War That Time Forgot series, they generally made them larger. They also made all dinosaurs meat eaters, regardless of whether they were meat eaters or plant eaters in real life. Every dinosaur you meet wants to eat you. And that is inaccurate in terms of science, in terms of what we know or theorize about dinosaurs, but nobody cares because it's World War II guys against dinosaurs, and that's awesome enough to trump any other thing that might be, any other problem with the series. So they bail out. The pterodactyl throws the plane at them and then comes in to finish them off, which means they have to do some grenade throwing while parachuting towards the ground. That works. It is typical in these stories that the dinosaurs are more or less immune to small arms fire, but grenades will finish them off, or bazooka shells will finish them off. You just need something explosive to be able to take them down. Bullets either bounce off, or you just can't shoot them enough times to have a significant effect on them. So the guys plummet into the water. By now, their parachutes are ripped up by the grenade explosions, but they're close enough to the water to where they survive the fall. Then they're about to get eaten by this giant sea serpent thing. Fortunately for them, another pterodactyl shows up and has the sea serpent for lunch. So they're picked up by a survivor on a airplane wing, and this is where the bulk of the action is going to take place. You got these 4 guys here, well, 5 guys, they pick up another survivor in the next panel, are going to be the main characters in this. Now, the War That Time Forgot series did not have regular characters. Sometimes Kanigher would introduce a set of characters and he would reuse them for 2 or 3 issues in hopes that they would catch on enough with readers to become either regular characters in this series or to spin off into their own series. But he never did find any particular set of characters that really caught on that well during the War That Time Forgot series. It's a series that ran for quite a long time, just based on the concept alone and the visual coolness of it. But the characterizations were never exceptional. In fact, when you finish reading this particular story, as much as I enjoy it, I always have trouble remembering the names of the characters afterwards because they're just guys in American uniforms who are there to kill dinosaurs, and they're not really given their own personalities. And if the concept of the series wasn't so just cool in of itself, that would be a flaw. But it works. This the panel there of the pterodactyl lifting up the sea serpent, that's just awesome. We're going to see other awesome panels of art here as well as the men desperately fight off the various monsters they'll encounter. That just works. That makes it work despite the absence of any really good characterizations. So anyway, they've got 5 guys on board. They find a 5th guy who's got a bazooka, which is good because the guy they picked up just before that had bazooka ammunition. And it's done very quickly and casually here, but this bazooka guy's a Medal of Honor winner. He's dying, he's wounded, he's going to give him the bazooka and he's going to go under and you'll never see him again. His last thought before he finally died was to get his companions, his comrades, a weapon they could use to fight off all the monsters here. So that's a pretty awesome guy there, and the story just passes over that really quickly, but it's actually kind of neat when you think about it. So moments after they get the bazooka and before they can try to rescue the now dead bazooka guy, they are attacked by a Parasaurolophus, which was a plant eater in real life, but here has got sharp teeth and apparently wants to eat them. He knocks up the wing. We see one guy in the bottom left corner fall off, and we're never going to see him again, so he apparently drowns. And then it comes up for another attack, and they use the bazooka to fire a bazooka rocket as if it is a torpedo, and that works. And I haven't the faintest idea if that would work in real life. I suspect it probably wouldn't. Bazookas were not designed to fire underwater rockets, but I don't care. It looks awesome. That's just cool. That middle panel there where the rocket hits the dinosaur and blows it up, the angle of the shot from under the water looking up, that's just awesome. Ross Andru was a great artist who just understood how to tell a story in a visual manner. Anyway, they keep floating. They see a couple of damaged American fighter planes flying by. Well, by golly, if they're spotted, then then the planes can radio for help and they can get rescued. But will that happen? Maybe not, because a dinosaur pops up and takes down one of the planes, then pops up for the other one. They use their last rocket to shoot that dinosaur to save the plane, and the plane flies off, but they're not sure if they were seen or not. They don't know if the plane will make it back to base. They have no idea if they're going to be rescued. So we're told from the panel here on the top left that they've seen an island after floating around for a couple of days. It's one of those little postage stamp islands that just floats around the Pacific. I don't know if something like that exists or not, and once again I don't care because it looks cool. And now we come up to the finale. They're on this island, they've got their small arms still, but they don't have any grenades or bazooka rounds left. So when this last monster attacks them, starts eating away the island, and they're just running out of room and they're going to die, there's nothing they can apparently do about it. But then, kaboom, the plane they saved a couple of days ago comes back and drops a bomb on the monster, and they're picked up by a submarine soon after. The last panel is a mildly lame joke to end the story, and then that's it. This is just a really, really cool story from a really cool series. I freely acknowledge its faults. It had just about no characterization to it whatsoever, no real attempt to make truly human characters, but it just doesn't matter. This was a story that existed, a series that existed purely to throw World War II soldiers together with dinosaurs and have them fight each other. It was based on its visual coolness alone. It had some of the best artists of the Silver Age working on it, and so it works on that level. And that's all we really need. That's it for part 2. I'll be back with part 3 soon. We will look at the historical importance of cavemen and dinosaurs during the American Revolution, something else that historians bizarrely never mention. So I'll see you all again soon.